Is Arizona's bullpen cursed? Whether it be injury, poor performance, or bad management, the D-backs have always seemed to struggle when it comes to the relievers.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, the show where we talk nothing but the D-backs Monday through Friday. And thank you so much for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every single day. I am your host, Dane Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So today we are going to be talking about something that has been very contested, not even contested, something that's been brought up a lot when it comes to Arizona, and that is their bullpen. The bullpen is always seemed to be the thing that's the go-to reason we don't win games. This year we blew something like 30 saves, and it just was, I mean, it was the worst in the whole entire league, and we lost the most games while winning in the ninth inning more than any other team. And it is the sort of thing where had we won just half of those, had we not blown half of those games, we would be in the playoffs right now. So that's a very fair criticism of the Diamondbacks. And I wanted to really take a good look at everything, and I wanted to see where the problem was. And the first place I went to see if there was a problem was maybe it's our pitching staff, maybe the bullpen coach, maybe because we did just get a new pitching staff recently. That didn't really seem to work unless it took until the end of the season to get going, because at the end of the season they were doing much better. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. But in doing the research for this episode, I think you guys will find it very, very interesting. So is the bullpen cursed? What does that mean? Basically, the question I had was, I want to look at a bunch of our relievers who are perhaps underperforming, and relievers that we've had recently, and see how was their career leading up to getting on the Diamondbacks, and for some since leaving the Diamondbacks. Because if we see fantastic numbers and then they come to the Diamondbacks and plummet, and then, or they leave the Diamondbacks and then they go up, then we know that it's a problem within the organization or something. And so I did some research to see if we could figure that out. So we are going to do that right now, and we're going to use, guess what? Very cool graphics that I've been learning how to make. So anyway, first off, let's talk about Jalen Beeks. He is now a free agent, so we will likely not be seeing him again, but I wanted to see what his deal was. And so he has a career ERA, average of his entire career, of 4.31. And he spent a lot of time in Boston, and he spent a lot of time in Tampa Bay, about 9 years, and he was going back and forth between majors and minors, kind of bouncing around, kind of developing in that space, until he eventually was cut and claimed by the Rockies. And the Rockies traded him in 2024 to the Pirates, and then he became a free agent. After becoming a free agent, he signed with the Astros before the 2025 season and was immediately cut by the Astros, and then signed with the Diamondbacks. He ended up playing 61 games with the Diamondbacks, which is a career high for him. The second most was in Colorado. He played 45 games, and from there, much less. He did have a career, and I don't have this on the graphic, but he did have a career low WHIP on the Diamondbacks with 1.08. And if you don't know, like I didn't until recently, WHIP is walks and hits per inning pitch. Essentially, how many runners do you allow per inning? So he allows just over one base runner per inning that he pitches on the Diamondbacks, which is a pretty good number. If it was below one, that would be like elite pitching. Once again, his career ERA, 4.31. His best ERA was in Tampa Bay with a 2.80. And with us, he had a 3.77 ERA. So his ERA was worse than his best year, which was in 2022, but it was better than his average. So he definitely, basically, the conclusion here is that Jalen Beeks didn't come here and then was horrible, but he also wasn't horrible and he came here. He was kind of this fringe player who's kind of bounced around between minors and majors, and in my opinion was kind of a, let's give this guy a shot. We need to fill our bullpen, and that is the reason we have Jalen Beeks, or I guess had. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's move on. We also have John Curtis. Now, this guy we saw a bit of this year. His first season was in Minnesota. Minnesota. Sorry, I brain fart there. I was like, is that Minneapolis? Anyway, in Minnesota in 2017, his first real season was in Tampa Bay, however, in 2020, and he had a 1.80 ERA. He was traded to Miami and then to Milwaukee in 2021 and had a ERA of 3.45 in 41 games. So he pitched quite a lot in 2021. He was signed by the Mets in 2022, but was injured all season, bounced around between AAA and MLB in 2023 with 4.58 ERA, 15 games. So kind of recovering from his injury, but also kind of just figuring himself out. He was signed by Colorado in 2024 and bounced between their minor league and major league system. And then finally, he was signed by Arizona before the beginning of this year. He was in Reno, called up in June, and played for the rest of the year with a 3.93 ERA. His career ERA is 4.03, and his best season was in Tampa Bay with a 1.80 in 2020. Once again, Curtis, kind of similar with Beeks, not really a standard major league player, kind of a minor league to major league fringe player who we needed and did pretty well, pretty average. I mean, he did better than his career average with us. So not bad. Played a lot of games, took a lot of innings, but not elite relief pitching, basically. But I would hardly say that he was, worse when he got here or much worse before he got here. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Ryan Thompson. Okay, so we like Ryan Thompson, I think. I really like his Byung-Hyun Kim sidearm throw. That will always, by the way, forever be a Byung-Hyun Kim delivery, is the sidearm throw. I will never see it and not think of him. His first season was with Tampa Bay, which I've noticed, by the way. I think Mike Hazen it must be friends with the GM in Tampa Bay, as well as in Seattle. We do a lot of deals with those two teams. It's very interesting. I don't know if that means much, but maybe when it comes to trade speculations and stuff, could be something to consider. I don't know if most speculators look at that kind of thing, but anyway, interesting. He had a 4.44 ERA when he first started. His career ERA, let's actually start there, is 3.54. And he started with 4.44. He pitched consistently every year with an ERA of, and we're going to start in 2020, he had 4.44. Then it dropped to 2.38, 3.80, and then 6.11. So it really fluctuated a lot. He kind of started at an average, did very well, a little bit less well, then not very good. And then he got traded to the Diamondbacks in 2023 and finished with a 0.69 ERA here in 2023, which a smaller sample size, but still big enough that I'd consider that legit. And then following that, last year he had 3.26. This year he had 3.92. So I think that Thompson is fairly, he kind of ebbs and flows. And right now I think he's pitching at about the level that we can expect from him. He's pitching very middle of the road. If it wasn't for his 6.11 season, his average ERA would be right around probably where he's at right now. So anyway, Thompson also just, I think, not an elite pitcher, but he has been consistent. He has been good. And I think he's probably, I think he's due for a breakout year, but we could probably expect similar numbers from him in the mid threes as far as his ERA goes. All right, let's talk about another pretty fun one. We have AJ Puck. Now, AJ Puck has a much smaller sample size here, but his first full season was in Oakland in 2022, and he had a 3.12 ERA. He then had a 3.97, a little bit worse, a 4.30, a little bit worse in 2024. And then he got traded to the Diamondbacks halfway through 2024 and ended up posting a 1.32 in the second half here in Arizona last year. So he pitched better here than he has anywhere else. And then this year, 2025, he only pitched 8 innings before getting injured, but only gave up 3 earned runs. So looked pretty good there. His career ERA is 3.53. And he was looking like he was probably going to be putting something in the low threes, I imagine, for 2025 had he not been injured, though we'll never know. So anyway, another example of, no, I wouldn't say that our bullpen is cursed at all. I don't think that pitchers come here and then perform worse, at least in the bullpen. We ought to do this again, but for starting pitchers. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this. I had a lot of fun doing research for this. So if you guys like this type of content, please tell me in the comments so I know to keep doing it. And if you don't like it, also tell me in the comments. I will cry a little bit, but at least I will then know, hey, let's not make this kind of content. Anyway, thank you guys, by the way, for commenting. Later on today, we're going to be hearing more from you guys and some of your comments, which I absolutely adore and love to hear from, even though a lot of times we will disagree. It's very fun. I enjoy it. So please do leave your thoughts in the comments below. That is, if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, go subscribe on YouTube and comment on one of our videos. Anyway, let's talk about, let's see, Shelby Miller, if my graphic will work. There we go. Oh, anyway, Shelby Miller is not coming up apparently, but that's okay. We'll just, we'll do Paul Sewald next. Okay, Paul Sewald. Spoiler alert, we're doing Paul Sewald now. So he has a career ERA of 4.11. Now, Paul Sewald, he came here at a very pivotal time. He came here when we won the National League Championship, when we went to the World Series, and was very dominant in the playoffs. He performed very well for that short amount of time. The year following, not so well. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, was he good? Was he bad? I don't remember, actually. I remember being frustrated with him, but I also remember liking him. So let's just look at his career really quick, written on paper. He played for the Mets, had an ERA of 4.55, then 6.07, 4.58. So mid fours, had a 6-year. Then he played in Seattle, where he performed much better, did 306, then 267, 293. So the high twos pretty well. And then halfway through the season, he came to Arizona, where he put up a 5.5, or sorry, 5, put up a 3.57 in 2023, the World Series year, and a 4.31 the following year. That year also, he spent a lot of time injured and not playing. He then later went to Cleveland, where he was later traded to Detroit, where he put up a 4.58 ERA this most recent year. Basically, he had a really good year in Seattle, but before then and since then hasn't really done too much. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about now our favorite guy named Shelby, unless you guys have another person named Shelby that you really like. As soon as I can just get rid of that. Okay, great. Sorry, little technical difficulties with the graphics. If you guys are just listening to this, just imagine there were really cool graphics, but they started not working. Anyway, Shelby Miller, he has a very long career, so I had to kind of break it up a little bit, but he pitched, he started as a starting pitcher. He came to Arizona with Zach Greinke. In a big way, it was supposed to be like Zach Greinke, Shelby Miller was supposed to be like the Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling duo, you know, and Greinke did pretty well, and Shelby Miller was injured the entire time and then came back and was not good in the slightest. So that was a disappointment. But he ended up making the transition to relief pitcher. And starting in 2023, he pitched for the Dodgers, where he put up an ERA of 1.71 in 2023. He then went to Detroit, where he put up a 4.53, much worse. Then he came to Arizona and put up a 1.98, much better. And that was this last year. So 2025, he was definitely one of our better pitchers. However, he got injured. He was out for a while, and we ended up kind of using him as we weren't going to secure him for much longer. This was just a 1-year contract. So we used him in the trade with Milwaukee, where since then he's been pitching 5.59. So not super great coming off of that injury, which of course that's also a smaller sample size. My conclusion was Shelby Miller. He seems to do pretty well when he's playing in the National League West. That's about all I got. Other than that, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. So the conclusion that I've come to is no, I don't think our bullpen is cursed. I don't think that our pitching staff sucks or our bullpen staff is horrible and is teaching bad stuff or what. I don't know. That was kind of something I was just curious about, but wouldn't have been surprised at. But I've now seen that is not the problem. The problem, however, is still obvious, and we're going to talk about that right after this quick little break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So now that we've talked about if our bullpen is cursed, I wanted to go back through at least Mike Hazen's tenure and Torey Lovullo's tenure, but also just kind of all of Diamondbacks history. They're not that old of a team, so it wasn't too terribly difficult. And I also got some fun little graphics. What? Okay, so what I have here in front of me is a chart, and it's just basically a chart that goes from 1998 all the way to 2025, and just charts the bullpen ERA. And if as you can see, it fluctuates usually anywhere between 3.5 and 5.0 year over year, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And it recently, the ups and downs has slowed down a little bit, but the ups and downs still happen. So before we get to the current period, you might see the lowest that we've ever posted is in 2012 with a 3.28. We were first in the league at that point with can you believe it? We had the best bullpen in the MLB once. Hard to believe, but we did. And I was like, well, what the heck? How did we do that? And then I remembered that was the year we had JJ Putz, we had prime Brad Ziegler and David Hernandez, and the three of them, basically it was like Hernandez would come in, he would set up Ziegler, who was just ground ball machine, and he would just quickly bang, 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 get people out. And then Putz would come in, if necessary, to close things out, and he just would every time. So good and so well done. There were a lot of other members of the bullpen that year, but those three dominated. So you had the three of them who were incredible, and their roles were very defined, which I feel like the Diamondbacks, Lovullo tries to get there, and when he does with specific players, they do, like when he gets that role defined really well, then that's when things start to work out. And so obviously that's the goal. 2012, they just really had that figured out. So anyway, let's look at 2016, the year before Mike Hazen took over. Right here, we posted a 4.96. So nearly 5 That was the second worst to that point. Our worst year, by the way, was 2010, which apparently was the worst bullpen in like 80 years. So 2010, we don't need to talk about that. We did come back and win the division the next year, so it all worked out. But 2016, pretty gnarly year. And next year, 2017, to get that down, which we did, what did Mike Hazen do to get it from nearly 5 to 3.78? Well, we moved Archie Bradley to the bullpen. Archie Bradley was a starting pitcher and decided to move him to the bullpen. He had a breakout year. So he's a big reason why that number went down, and he ended up being very reliable in the pen. We also signed a lot of veteran relievers to one-year contracts before this, and including David Hernandez. We signed him right back to a one-year deal. Or actually, we traded for him and at the halfway point. So we had Archie Bradley, a bunch of veteran players, including David Hernandez halfway through the year. And what that did is that kind of just culminated not in any Archie Bradley was a standout, but the rest of the bullpen was just consistent, and they weren't incredibly they didn't shut everybody down incredibly, but they all came and they did their job, and none were egregiously bad or anything like that, which is big. The next year, very similar numbers. In fact, I had to double check. Actually, I triple checked this just to make sure. We had the exact same bullpen ERA between 2017 and 2018, 3.78. I'm still not 100% sure that that's correct, but apparently it is. So hopefully it is. But so we did that. That's pretty cool. And the reason why it was able to stay the same was because we still had Archie Bradley, who was still doing pretty good. And we also had TJ McFarland, who, if you remember, had a breakout year in 2018. So he did a very good job. We also signed veteran from the Japan League. Let me see if I can remember how to say his name. Yoshihisa Hirano. I just remember Yoshi Hirano and Brad Boxberger before the 2018 season. So we continued to sign veteran players who were tried and true, proven to be effective, and that worked really well. So then 2019 happened, and not very great, not very bad, but not very great. We lost Boxberger. We saw Bradley, Chafin, Hirano, Matt Andriese, and McFarland. They headed up the bullpen, but they all kind of just performed slightly worse than the year before. And so we kind of just saw that. So we didn't really add much to the bullpen, but we lost Boxberger, and then we just kind of left everything the way it was, and things just kind of slowly got a little bit worse. So that happened there in 2019. 2020, which was the COVID year, kind of a tough one to say, so we're going to kind of just skip past that one for now. 2021, our most consistent reliever was Joe Mantiply, followed by Caleb Smith. And neither of them did very good. Like, Mantiply did fine. I don't even remember Caleb Smith. And we had, if you look at the list of all of our relief pitchers in 2021, it's massive. It's so long. We have so many different, there was so much turnover. Nobody was able to really stick it out for very long. And every year up to this point, we have 2, 3, 4 pitchers that are pitching 60 games. And in 2021, nobody pitched 60 games, not one. So, and only one pitched 50. So 2021, definitely not as good of a year. And the number of veterans that we had was a lot lower. So then 2022, we need to bring that number down. And we did, thankfully, because again, we're 5.08, terrible numbers. That also happened to be the 28th. I think we were tied for 28th. So I think we were the second worst ERA in the MLB this year. So absolutely atrocious. These 2 years, we were, I think, 5th. Yeah, we were 5th both of these years. 5th in the MLB. And then 12th, 18th, and 28th. Or second to last. 2022, we brought that down to 4.58, but that only really was we were the 25th in the league. So we were the 5th worst still. So 2nd worst to 5th worst. I guess that's an improvement. We signed Mark Melancon. I never knew how to say his name. Melancon, who was a very veteran, played for a very long time, and he had just put up a very good season in 2021 with San Diego with a 2.23 ERA. So we signed him to a big 2-year deal, multi-million-dollar contract, and he did fine here. He put a 4.66 ERA, and we also signed Ian Kennedy, who had a 5.36 ERA. So we had them going into the season, as well as just kind of our farm system and people who we had up to that point. 2023, though, we did see a little bit more of an improvement. Malenkin was under contract for 2 years, but he was injured all of 2023, and he ended up retiring after that. So we didn't have him on there. But we did sign a handful of 1-year deals with some veteran pitchers, including Andrew Chafin, who had put up a 2.29 ERA in the 2 years prior to this, put up a 4.19 ERA this season in 2023. So not great. Oh, it looks like you guys can't even see the graph. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. And then, but yeah, 4.22 ERA, which ranked us at the 18th. So still worse than average, but far better than we had been. So I suppose that's good. And we traded for Paul Sewald halfway through, and he ended up becoming quite the solid closer. We also called up a lot of guys from AAA to kind of fill that in. After the latter half of 2023, far better bullpen wise than the first half, but still that's the number of it's hard to really gauge how everything did just by 1 point per year. Anyway, what I really found interesting were these final 2 years, though. In the offseason between 2023 and 2024, the front office didn't really do anything. We kind of were just like, you know what? We ended the season pretty good, so let's focus on other things. And that's what they did. They focused on other stuff, and we're like, let's just keep developing the guys that we have. Well, that didn't really work super great. I mean, it didn't work terribly, but we ended up being the 25th ranked bullpen again. So it's not like we were doing great to begin with. So they didn't really do much. We did acquire AJ Puck halfway through the season, who did great. We also acquired Dylan Floro, who did not do great. And Paul Sewald was getting injured a lot, and also got a lot worse. And then in 2025, this most recent season, all of the money that we had to spend on pitching went to one Corbin Burns for the starting rotation, which, had he stayed healthy, I think it probably would have been worth it. And I'm still excited to see him come back halfway through next year and hopefully pitch great for the remainder of his contract. But because of that, we didn't have much going for us. But we did have some pretty good guys that were developing who were going to be on the team for a while, particularly Justin Martinez and AJ Puck. So it was like, okay, well, let's get these guys, and then we'll develop our AAA guys, and we'll be, and we'll be good. Well, everybody got injured, and because we didn't sign anybody new, we didn't have really much to go on. So that was the big aha moment for me. After 2023, the bullpen it became an afterthought. We were kind of like, well, we'll just ride what we have that's working and not add anything else to it. And I think that is the lesson that we've learned. And I think that is going to be the principal thing we're going to look at going into 2026, that and starting pitching. But we need to sign, the seasons that have worked, and in 2017, 2018, but also before that, were the years that we had experienced players in the bullpen who knew how to get out of slumps, knew how to generate their own momentum, knew how to get a role in the team and really make that happen. So hopefully, Mike Hazen, who's watching this, obviously, hopefully you are able to lock down some of those. I will come up with some names and send them your way in the form of this podcast and further in later episodes. So don't you worry about it. But if you guys have any thoughts on this, please let me know. I thought this was all very interesting. I enjoyed looking into this, and I enjoy hearing from you guys, which we are going to do right now. So please don't go anywhere. We will be right back. You guys, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got just a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, let's hear from you guys because you guys have some cool things to say, and I want to hear it. And also, I got the graphics now, so let's do this. From RMP5S, which you've commented on the show before, and once again, I'll just say I don't know what to do about your name there, so I'm just going to say it as it is. Says, I don't know, man. I think we were actually relatively deep. This is talking about like the roster, but I think specifically the bullpen. We just had a ridiculous amount of injuries, just so many. Dang near everyone was hurt at some point, especially pitchers. I really hope we get Kelly back, though. Oh, wait, we gotta get the next part. I really hope we get Kelly back. If we could get him and Rojas back, that'd make the hometown boys team whole again. Yeah, so there's been talk about whether or not we're going to sign Kelly or Gallen again. And even yesterday, there's been talk about that. And I think they're looking at, I think it's likely that they're going to sign one or the other. And the way that Kelly's season ended, not doing as well on the Rangers, we probably have a fair shot at getting him, though Gallen also, I think, is maybe not as sexy on the market as well. So we might be able to get a good deal for him. But they made it clear that as much as they'd like to get the band back together, it's going to be the dollars that are going to speak the loudest. As far as whether or not we were deep, I mean, we're deep in the sense that we have a lot of pitchers in Reno, and that works. But it feels like, and this is kind of what we talked about in the first segment, is it feels like Mike Hazen is kind of just like, okay, we need bullpen pitchers. Okay, who was designated for assignment recently? Who was just cut from their team? Oh, Nabil Krismat. Okay, Jalen Beeks. Okay, these guys, this guy, this guy. And he's just kind of picking up what he can. And which I understand you have to do that sometimes, but I don't know that I would consider that necessarily a deep bullpen. I think that's more of I don't know that I would consider most of those guys high quality pitching material, which is kind of rough, but which I'm not saying they're bad either. I'm just saying I think we need some high quality. I think we need a Justin Martinez, AJ Puck. I think we need one or two more of those because when there are injuries, we'll have a few more to work off of. But you're not wrong. You're also not wrong. There were a ridiculous amount of injuries, and I think that I think that exposed whatever insufficiencies there were. So anyway, Scott, who is a frequent commenter and is often unhappy with the way things are going, about retaining Lavello, he says, awful move. Bochy and Melvin both out, but Torrey stays. A travesty. Get ready for another season of no playoffs. Twice in a decade. Bravo. Which he's referring to the fact that Bochy and Melvin, the managers for the Rangers and the Giants, were both let go. And they kind of, them and Torrey Lavello are all pretty comparable. I think they all kind of fit into the same category. And so he's basically saying, well, they're getting fired. Why isn't Torrey Lavello getting fired? And I think it's because Melvin and Bochy both the reasons that their teams didn't make it, I think, has more to do with them than Torrey and the reason we didn't make it. Now, that's speculation. That's my opinion. So you're absolutely welcome to disagree with that, because I didn't really give you any facts or figures with that. But I think that Torrey Lovello hasn't been given a great hand nearly every time. And so I think that the fact that he's able to rally the team every single year to some extent, I think says a lot. So I disagree with you there, Scott, but I don't disagree with you entirely. I guess I should say. Anyway, we have one more. This one, it looks like it's Wayne Kest, but I think it's supposed to be Wanye Kest. That's very funny. Anyway, Torrey and Hazen are doing the best they can. You can't coach stuff like the injuries to AJ Puck, Jamar, and Corbin Burns. Hazen can only do so much too. Baseball involves skill, but a lot of luck, and the team is talent, but just haven't been lucky the past 2 years. So unless one of them ticked off a witch, they aren't to blame. Yes, I guess if Mike Hazen or if Torrey Lovello got cursed by a witch or something because they were mean to her, then I guess they would be to blame. But no, that's kind of the same thing that I'm thinking. Is it's like, I don't know that either of them are necessarily doing their job bad or poorly. They could be doing it better, I suppose. And I would be interested to see if there is a reason. Like, there's got to be some underlying reason why there were so many injuries this year. Like, was there a routine that some coach had all the pitchers doing that just was not working? But whatever it was, yeah, I think that they are doing a good job. And perhaps if the payroll was doubled, to match the Dodgers, then they could have been deep enough that the rotations wouldn't have hurt them. But again, the Diamondbacks, even this being the most expensive payroll in Diamondbacks history, still isn't really all that high compared to the heavy hitters. So anyway, you guys, this has been fun. I've enjoyed this. This has been an interesting week, first week in the off season. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you for sticking around and tuning in every day, and for making this your first listen every day. I really, really appreciate it, and I appreciate all the comments. Please keep leaving them, because next week we're going to do the same thing. Be sure to follow us over on X. I have a little graphic that says all of our little things, but it doesn't seem to be appearing, so I'm just going to tell you. Be sure to follow us on X and Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Diamondbacks. We are on YouTube as well as every other place you get your podcasts. If you want to see more of me, you can go find more of my YouTube channels and projects at slackshack.tv. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you next Monday.